Amidst the global turmoil of Russia-Ukraine war, we've witnessed yet another devastating war this year. On October 7th, Hamas launched a series of attacks against Israeli civilians, military targets, including a music festival. Israel's response to the attacks was swift and rather severe, the brunt of which is still being felt here across the Rafah crossing in the Gaza Strip by many civilians. Hundreds of Israelis were killed, but thousands and thousands of Palestinians were found dead as well because of the Israeli attacks. I'm Geeta Mohan, and over the next half hour, in this special episode, Conflict of the Year, we'll be talking about how this entire war has come about and what were the reasons that caused the war between Israel and Hamas.
In a bold and unforeseen maneuver, Hamas, which governed the Gaza Strip, initiated Operation Al-Aqsa Flood against Israel. This attack marked a significant escalation in a conflict rooted in decades of historical and political tensions since Israel's establishment in 1948. This assault, coinciding with the 50th anniversary of the 1973 Yom Kippur War, signaled a dark commemoration.
As we enter, yet another home, and there's just no light here because it's completely burnt. But this is a home like any other. This could be anybody's house. Fridge completely gutted, pots and pans in the kitchen. Completely normal house. Potatoes still in their basket. A coffee table with some fruit still in the fruit tray. A children's bedroom with the glass completely cracked. There are some people here from the Zaka group who are, actually helping to clean things up. These are volunteer workers who are helping clean things up so these families can move back in. You can see a bullet hole here through the glass as well. It's terrifying. There's just a smell that hangs in these houses of soot, recently lived in, and just an indescribable smell of death and decay. And if you look at pictures, there are even pictures here. I don't want to go too close to them because these are family pictures of people, and we've been told, please don't show any pictures of the families. We have to respect their privacy, so we're not going to be showing you anything close up. But just to tell you that this is a family home, a happy family. Pictures up on the wall, laughing children, parents hugging their newborns. It could be anybody's house. I think that's really what I'm trying to say. So this is a report that's going to be unforgettable for anyone who's been here, and it's truly terrifying.
Today marked the beginning of Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. With divine assistance, our first strike targeted the enemy's vital infrastructure, launching a barrage of over 5,000 rockets and missiles.
Reeling under a devastating loss of over 1,200 civilians in Israel, as also 240 held captive, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu proclaimed a state of war against Hamas, leading to the most intensified siege of Gaza Strip, as also a series of punitive airstrikes.
הבוקר חמאס פתח במתקפת פתע רצחני נגד מדינת ישראל ונגד אזרחיה.
Israel stood united in a war for our survival.
כינסתי את ראשי מערכת הביטחון, הנחיתי קודם כל.
In a desperate bid for safety, Israel advised Gaza City's Palestinian residents to flee southwards. However, with southern Gaza under heavy bombardment, escape routes dwindled, leaving many trapped in a dire situation.
Let's take you through how a security barrier that Israel has established along its border with the Gaza Strip looks like. I'll elaborate each and every component as depicted here in the graphics that we've put up for you. Beginning with the observation tower. Now, if you look at the observation tower, it is on the Israeli side. These are strategically placed structures that provide a vantage point for Israeli security forces to monitor the entire area. They may be equipped with surveillance cameras, motion sensors, and other high-tech monitoring equipment. Then comes the fence. The primary barrier is a fortified fence equipped with sensors to detect any attempts at infiltration or tampering. It serves as the first line of defense against unauthorized crossings. There is the no-go zone area, which expands from 0 to 100 meters on the Gazan side. This is a designated area directly adjacent to the fence on the Gaza side where Palestinian access is severely restricted. Israel has designated this area to deter and easily detect infiltration attempts. Any unauthorized movement in this zone can attract fire from Israeli forces. Restricted access area is just beyond the no-go zone area. It is wider in terms of the area, which extends from 100 to 300 meters immediately after the no-go zone area on the Gazan side. While it is not as strictly enforced as the no-go zone area, it still has significant restrictions. Farmers and others might be allowed into this area, but access is limited and can be dangerous. Underground concrete barriers are very important. If you can see, they go all the way down. Israel has been constructing an underground barrier to counter the threat of attack, tunnels dug from Gaza into Israeli territory. That's what they're trying to avoid through these tunnels. This barrier is equipped with sensors to detect tunneling activities. It's designed to penetrate deep into the underground to prevent tunneling beneath it. Access only for farmers and on foot. That's a very interesting area, which is an area that can only be accessed by some Palestinian farmers on the Gazan side, but the conditions can vary and access can be very risky. Being on foot might minimize the perceived threat to Israeli forces, but there's still potential for confrontation or incidents.
On 17th October, a tragedy unfolded at the Al-Ahli Al-Arbi Baptist Hospital in Gaza City, with a deadly explosion causing widespread casualties. This incident ignited a firestorm of anger across the Arab world. Palestinians attributed the blast to an Israeli airstrike, while Israel insisted it resulted from a Palestinian rocket malfunction. On October 18, amidst escalating tensions, US President Joe Biden embarked on a crucial visit to Israel, seeking to de-escalate the situation and prevent the conflict from spilling over into the region. He attributed the hospital explosion to an errant rocket from Gaza militants.
I was deeply saddened and outraged by the explosion at the hospital in Gaza yesterday. And based on what I've seen, it appears as though it was done by the other team, not you.
I'm here right outside Al-Arish Hospital, where Palestinians who are critically injured in the Gaza Strip are being brought into to tend to their injuries. Now, what has happened in Gaza Strip when it comes to Israel's response has been criticized widely, particularly from medical practitioners across the world, asking them to stop attacking medical workers. There's also hospitals. The Arab world's response to the initial attacks by Israel against hospitals in the Gaza Strip was quite stern. They cancelled the summit-level meeting with President Biden, clearly showing the growing and deepening rift between the West and the Arab world.
October 20th saw a moment of relief as Hamas released 2 American hostages.
We have now completed the return of the first of our hostages. Children, their mothers and other women. Each and every one of them is a whole world. But I emphasize to you, the families, and to you, the citizens of Israel, we are committed to the return of all our hostages. This is one of the goals of the war, and we are committed to achieving all the goals of the war.
And on October 21st, after intense international negotiations, aid finally began flowing into Gaza through Egypt's Rafah crossing, though it remained a mere drop in the ocean of Gaza's needs.
The term world's largest open-air prison is often used colloquially to describe the Gaza Strip due to the strict movement restrictions placed on its nearly 2 million residents. These restrictions have been primarily imposed by Israel, but Egypt also controls one of Gaza's borders and has at times restricted movement. Here is a brief overview. The Gaza Strip is a small coastal territory bordered by Israel to the north and east, Egypt to the south, and the Mediterranean Sea to the west. Most people in the Gaza Strip are descendants of refugees who fled or were expelled from the area that became Israel after the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. In 2007, after the Hamas, which is declared a terrorist organization by Israel, the US, the EU, the UK, and other entities, took control of the Gaza Strip following a conflict with Fatah, Israel tightened its blockade on Gaza. The blockade restricts the movement of goods and people into and out of the territory. Now, Israel argues that these measures are necessary to prevent weapons and materials that could be used for military purposes from reaching the Hamas and other militant groups in Gaza. The blockade has had a profound economic impact on Gaza, leading to high unemployment rates, a severe electricity crisis, and dependency on humanitarian aid. To circumvent the blockade, Palestinians have dug tunnels into Egypt to smuggle goods. Additionally, there have been attempts by various groups to breach the sea blockade by sending flotillas to Gaza. Israel has intercepted most of these. Now, Israel asserts that the blockade is a necessary security measure aimed at protecting its citizens from attack by the Hamas and other militant groups based in Gaza. The Israeli security apparatus around the Gaza Strip is multi-layered, designed primarily to prevent attacks from Gaza-based militant groups, deter smuggling of weapons, and also to control the movement of goods and people into and out of the territory. Then there is a naval blockade where the Israeli Navy enforces a maritime blockade restricting Palestinian boats to a varying range off the coast, which has been as little as 3 nautical miles, though at times expanded to 15 nautical miles. Then there is airspace control, wherein Israel controls Gaza's airspace, preventing any aircraft from flying in or out of the airspace. This includes the usage of drones as well. About the ground checks and crossings control, Israel controls most of the border crossings into Gaza. The primary commercial crossing is the Kerem Shalom crossing, through which most of the goods enter or exit Gaza. Erez is the main crossing for individuals, though passage is limited mostly to medical patients, aid workers, and journalists. Egypt controls the Rafah crossing, a very important one to the south, and its policies can be restrictive as well, though at times it has been more lenient than the Israeli-controlled crossings. The days to follow brought in a mix of despair and hope. Even as hostages were released, Israel intensified its military action within Gaza. On the 27th of October, Israel's ground offensive began within the Gaza Strip, which was a major escalation in war.
On October 31st, an Israeli airstrike targeted the densely populated Jabalia refugee camp, claiming the life of a high-ranking Hamas commander, yet leaving a trail of destruction and civilian casualties.
وين كنت لما صار القصف يعملوا؟
God will take my vengeance. I was standing here when 3 bombings happened. I carried a body and another decapitated body with my own hands.
On 1st November, international pressure mounted so much so that the commencement of evacuations from Gaza began. On the 6th of November, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres demanded an immediate ceasefire, calling Gaza a graveyard for children.
Gaza is becoming a graveyard for children. Hundreds of girls and boys are reportedly being killed or injured every day.
In the early hours of November 9, a large explosion near Al-Shifa hospital. Sent people scrambling for cover. The hospital, overwhelmed, saw body bags piling up in temporary shelters outside its compound. Overhead, smoke from nearby blasts darkened the sky.
The situation now is very bad. We don't have connection. There is no internet. Sometimes we have some that is on the call phone. We're on the 4th floor. And also there's a sniper who attacked 4 patients from the inside the hospital.
In response to widespread criticism over its offensive against civilians, the Israeli military released a video on November 12 showing soldiers delivering fuel to the embattled Shifa hospital. This move, intended to show humanitarian concern, was met with mixed reactions. On November 13, tensions peaked as Israeli tanks encircled Gaza City's Al-Shifa hospital, still sheltering hundreds of patients. Israel accused the hospital of concealing Hamas militants and armaments, a charge vehemently denied by Hamas.
This is what they found, a live grenade. We will see the MRI center and see the weapons that Hamas has hidden inside. There is an AK-47, there are cartridges, ammo, there are grenades in here, a closet here, which is in the main part of the clinic. This is what they found, a live grenade, ammunition, fighting vest with insignia, boots and of course uniforms, and last but not least, standard AK-47. And a computer which at first glance already provides a lot of incriminating evidence.
Civilians huddled in makeshift tents on the hospital grounds expressed a steadfast resolve to stay. They claimed they had no other refuge and were not planning on leaving despite the escalating danger.
We are determined and thankful to God. No matter what they do to us, we won't leave Al-Shifa. They have cut off water, electricity and food supplies.
Israel's actions during the conflict have drawn in intense global scrutiny, with some voices labeling it war crimes. Voices of condemnation and concerns have come in from various quarters, including Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, the United Nations, as also the European Union.
The people of Gaza are in the midst of an epic humanitarian catastrophe before the eyes of the world. We must not look away. Intense negotiations are taking place to prolong the truce, which we strongly welcome. But we believe we need a true humanitarian ceasefire.
The kingdom's position is constant and firm. There is no way to achieve security and stability in Palestine except through the implementation of the international decisions related to the two-state solution.
Despite severe criticism of Israel from across the world, there is a lot of support that has come Tel Aviv's way in terms of the influx of visitors, leaders from the United States of America, the UK, Germany, France. The United Nations has called this war and Israel's actions a war crime. But that hasn't changed how the Western leaders and world is looking at supporting Israel. In this complex, complicated, changing geopolitical landscape, it seems like strategic interests of various countries trump global interests, and strategic interests certainly are intertwined with their own foreign policy and national interests. Goodbye and take care.